Good day, Chief here for CTT. I'm done with school to become a warrant officer. And as I said, I ate up a lot of leave because I took leave in November, took the 2 weeks Christmas break, took 2 weeks to get from Fort Rucker, Alabama to Fort Huachuca because nothing to do because school didn't start until that 2 weeks was over with. And now I'm graduating, I think like the latter part of April or the very first few days of May, because I got to be in Hawaii to talk to my lawyer for some business that took place while I was stationed in Hawaii in regards to my divorce. Enough said about that. So now I'm going from Texas to Colorado because that's where my parents live, so I'm going to spend time with them, a couple days with them, fly to Hawaii, get told, oh, we ain't done yet, and then come back to Colorado, then drive up to Fort Lewis. I think I shaved a couple days off just to save me some because I think I was in the hole by the time I reported there. So I report there. And I report late in the day. I think it was probably on a Friday because I think I had the weekend off. So I'm not the only soldier standing there because they got this big transition center where people in process and out process. So they got everything you need is in this one building, at least when I was there. So there is a enlisted member ahead of me in line, and this guy said, let me back, like I said, we had a 201 file, so I was hand carrying that, and plus my medical records and my dental records and my orders and everything else that I had to turn in so we could get in process. So I'm listening to everything that I need. I'm doing a double check, make sure I got it all. So he gets done talking to this sergeant, and he says, pushes over a piece of paper across the counter and said, okay, we're right here, there's the parade field over here, while you're in processing you belong to us, so this is where you'll be, report to PT on Monday. So I'm like, oh, okay, at least I know where I gotta be Monday. So then he looks up at me, warrant officer, oh, brand new, okay, takes all my paperwork, takes all my files, I guess I should say, my orders and everything else, and signs me off of leave and takes my leave form and looks at me and goes, and I look at him, I look at him and I go, well, don't I get that piece of paper as to where I gotta be? He goes, no sir. He says, officers don't do PT, and you're a warrant officer, so you probably already got a profile anyway. Yes, that was a fallacy with us. A lot of my fellow warrant officers did have profiles, but the only trouble is we couldn't go to WOBC with a profile of any kind. If you had a P2 or a P3, you were not accepted. And we argued that after I got higher in ranks because we finally had some soldiers, some sergeants who were well qualified military-wise, but can't do push-up, can't do the run, but yeah. So I report there. So I think it's like a whole week that we got to do where we got to go from this office to this office and this office. And sometimes I noticed that rank had its privileges, so I was like the first one called, and then other times I wasn't the first one called. And what is really hilarious is that I got called into finance, I think it was, and I sit down and I look at this woman, and she looks at me, she goes, I know you, but I don't know from where. So I look at her and I said, I know exactly where. I said, Hawaii. I said, you were working in housing. She goes, yes. And I explained the situation to her where my ex-spouse had been in her office and saw her like 2 hours prior to straighten out her housing information because she was living on post at the time. So she says, I'm tired. And she was the only one in the office, and so was I. And it's not like I got there right at the time of closing. I got there plenty of time for her to wait on me in Hawaii at closing, and she just says, I am so tired. So she prints off my paperwork so I can clear housing. And I burst out laughing. And she says, what's so funny? I said, you got my last name, but you don't have my social security number, and you don't have my first and last name on this form. It was my ex-spouse's new husband's information. And she says, no, I don't remember that story, but she says, if you say that's what happened that day, then that's where I know you from. So I spend my time going through office after office, getting in process, and I get over to the battalion. I'm in a brigade, so I'm at a brigade level, and there is a permanent division at Fort Lewis. And Fort Lewis told the government, as long as you keep a division at Fort Lewis, you can have it, so to speak. It's your land. But if you go smaller than a division, the land will come back to the state. But now it's a joint base, that deal's probably off the plate. So here I am in the land of Fort Lewis. I get a place. I live over, first time I mentioned actually where I live over in Lacey, and I have a nice house, but I will live in 3 residences while I'm there. One will get sold out from under me, another one I have to abandon when I go TDY, and then I come back to a third. And that third one is when the earthquake, the minor earthquake happened. I had just gotten my household goods. I had all my books ready to stick in my bookshelves. They were all stacked up in stacks in the living room. So when I got home that day from after the earthquake, my books were scattered all over the floor. That was about the only thing that had tumbled over, anything like that. I had a good time while I was at Fort Lewis. Like I said, I lived in 3 different places. We had deer. I can't remember what other animals we had. We had plenty of the Canadian geese. I can't stand Canadian geese because they like to poop everywhere. And we had a lake that we could walk to from our first house, but the beach and the area was just covered with goose refuse, and they were always chasing them out of the park. But yeah, everybody says, why you want to go to Washington State? Nothing but rain. I remember back when I lived in Colorado, we used to say, yeah, what do Washingtonians do? Did they rust because of so much rain? Actually, we had what they call a drought. We went 96 days one year while I was there without rain, not a drop of moisture. So the water department shipped us off this letter about a third of the way, halfway through this water crisis they were having. They were like, oh, you guys need to conserve water because we haven't had any rain. We haven't had that much rain. So then they turned around after we, and once it started raining again, they sent us another thing with our bill. You guys are really good. You saved us so much water, but now we've got to pay for the additional storage, so we got to increase your water bill. And I'm like, oh great, you had us conserve so we could get through the crisis, but now you got so much water, you're putting the storage bill on us. I mean, it wasn't like astronomical, like dollars. It went up pennies, so to speak, but it was just dumb. Because now here in San Antonio, there's never enough water. We're already on water restriction 2 here. Not that that's got anything to do with Washington State. So now I'm at a brigade. I'm in a battalion back in headquarters company, because that's where all the warrant officers are. And since this is my first duty station as a warrant officer, I was surprised by the number of them, because everywhere else I have served, if I saw a dozen in the unit, but here there's about 24 of us, if I remember correctly. We were almost a platoon amongst ourselves. And we had all the MOSs that we needed for military intelligence. So they assigned me more or less to this recently promoted CW2. I didn't know that at the time. And he started giving me all the jobs he had. He was working a dual job. He was working a captain level job over at the G3, which I took over from him. So I had a G3 office and I had my office in the ACE. Well, he also was the unit movement officer. I took over that responsibility for him. So I had to go to unit movement school. I had to go to the hazmat school, and we had to get all this training. So if the unit was ever called up, we would be the person for the company level to help coordinate getting our vehicle shipped. And then when we went to the place where they shipped the vehicle, they basically said, you guys will just sit back and do nothing because we do everything for you, because we know how to do this, because that's our only function. You're just a person to talk to, so you can tell your commanders if they have any discrepancies. So, but it was really neat. We got to go to one of the cargo ships. They had 2 cargo ships stationed there, so that was nice. Interesting to see. It was kind of a roll on, roll off kind of thing. Really strange. Then of course I became the safety officer, so I had to go to safety school. So I did a lot of things that this previous warrant officer was doing as CW2, and then he PCS out of there. And when it came time for me to give somebody else that G3 job, because it was a captain's level. Now, this is kind of where that 3rd lieutenant comes in, because we didn't have enough captains to provide that captain slot. So basically, throughout your military career, you're supposed to only work 2 slots above you or 1 below, according to your rank. But here I am, a W01. I'm actually working lots of levels above me as a captain, and I didn't get any credit for that. I mean, we'll talk about that later, what I did, but I mean, I did a very excellent job, I thought. But like I said, when it came time for me to say, hey, we need a new guy to do this, we're not going to fulfill that anymore, and G3 understands. And it was an interesting slot. Basically, it was an allocation slot for during the exercises. So I went to a lot of schools, got a lot of training, and also as a warrant officer, I don't know this yet, I am going to be traveling a lot and talking to warrant officers throughout my career. They were like, I didn't travel so much as an enlisted person until I became a warrant officer. And this is not counting going to war and going down range multiple times. This is going to this place to go do an exercise, this place to go do an exercise, this place to go do an exercise, or this place to go to a school. Now remember, I read you the definition. We're supposed to get more and more advanced training on equipment. Not once will I go to a class on equipment. Like I said, military intelligence equipment changes every 2 to 3, 5 years, but it's not like they pull in all the warrant officers and say, oh, this is what we're going to start fielding. This is how you use this thing. So when you go back to your units and you get this thing, you'll know how to use it. Don't get that kind of training, because later on in my career, something comes across my path. Full bird colonel looks at me and goes, Chief, what does this thing do? I look at it, I said, I know how to turn it on, but if you give me the manual, I'll read it and tell you what this thing does. He says, okay. Fair game. I said, it's not like I didn't get any training on this, sir. He understood. So that's my introduction into Fort Lewis. I know it was a little crazy here and there, bumpy road. I also hid the cat in the room, so the cat isn't trying to get on my lap today. This is a little late. I've been doing a lot of yard work, had a very nice couple of days, so that's why I'm late this week. So this is Chief out. Freedom is not free. The Ukrainians are proving it every day. But as President Zelensky says, they need new modern stuff, not Soviet era stuff, to go on the offense. I mean, they are going on a minor offense, but they need the big stuff to go on a major offense and take back all their land. So remember, freedom's not free. Chief out.